And I'm here to speak today about the spying program, not just the government spying program, but the corporate spying as well. First of all, I'd like to say I do believe that some government spying is okay. I think it is important to have our government spying on foreign countries that may be a threat to us. What I don't think is okay is the government sweeping up all the information it can about anyone and everyone here in America and around the world. I don't think it's okay, and I want to say exactly why. First of all, the NSA is not a new organization. It's been around for a long time, since World War II, just after World War II, and it has a record of being used to spy on people for the president. As part of the Minaret Affair, it spied on Martin Luther King, it spied on President Nixon's enemies like Senator Howard Baker, even spied on a humor columnist in the newspaper, Art Buchwald, and the NSA has been, and so the NSA is not exactly an innocent organization. There have been cases of abuse before, and those cases of abuse were not prosecuted, just like abuses nowadays are not being prosecuted. It's worse because the NSA's capabilities keep getting stronger and worse. If the British had had something like the NSA, then our founders would not have been able to set up a more democratic nation. We would have been stuck with the British version of democracy, which is we would not have been able to set up our own constitution with our own protections for people's rights. And sorry, just a minute. Okay, so by now the NSA spying and the spying of organizations allied with the NSA has expanded far beyond any need. They say they're only spying on metadata. They're not. They say they're only recording who calls whom and when. But even that metadata program has already been found unconstitutional by a judge now that it's finally come into the light. Before now, there wasn't any chance for judges to find it unconstitutional except for a few hand-picked judges. It didn't go through the normal judicial process. Now that things have been revealed to the public, it is now finally starting to go through the normal judicial process, and one brave judge has already said that this is unconstitutional. So, I should also say that even though they tell us that it's just metadata, that's not true. And I have a very good source for this. Last May 1st, former FBI agent Tim Clemente was interviewed on CNN, and he said they're not just recording metadata, they're actually recording the entire contents of your phone calls. His quote was, "Welcome to America. All of that stuff is being captured as we speak, whether we know it or like it or not." That's from CNN, May 1st, 2013, and he said the same thing on CNN the next day. So the media keeps telling us it's only metadata, they're not listening to anything else. Actually, they're doing a lot more than that, and all we know about is what Edward Snowden revealed, and the NSA is already taking steps to make sure that we don't find out about any new programs they do in the future. All this data is constantly being analyzed, and the reason they were able to do this is not because the public said it was okay. They were able to do it because they set up this whole program in secret. It was never vetted. It was never run by the public. It was just a president deciding by himself that people who work for him would be able to do this. And the president sets all the policies, and there's a good deal of aggressive lawyering, stretching the meanings of words beyond recognition. They claim that people are not being targeted. They claim that surveillance is unintentional, but they do it anyway, and they gather all the information they can. Now, if you have such a big trove of information about everybody, it's a really attractive thing to have. When you have that much information about anyone, you can figure out a whole lot about them. You can figure out where they went, who they talked to, what they're thinking, and even try to use software to predict what they're going to do in the future. And if you have that much information, it's so exciting to have that nobody is ever going to give that up of their own free will. If you have that, so just a minute. Sorry, this is pretty cold out here. But if you have that much information, nobody is ever going to give it up of their own free will. There have already been cases of NSA staff using their databases to spy on their ex-girlfriends and ex-lovers. President Obama keeps saying there's been no proven cases of abuse. He doesn't say there have been no abuses, he says there have been no proven cases of abuse, and that's just because the details have not leaked out to the public. Again, nobody has been prosecuted for this. And instead of trying to prosecute the people who do bad things with it, they're just trying to defend the capabilities they have, and as a highly placed intelligence official, Michael Hayden, just said, Obama has really not made any substantial changes to the intelligence program. So don't take it from me, take it from Michael Hayden, who is a senior member of the intelligence community, and he just said that. So, fortunately, the American people are now waking up. Americans are now finding out what's going on, even though the government did not want us to know what was going on. We're now finding out about it. There were leaks. The government's taking every step they can to make sure there are no further leaks, but there were pretty substantial leaks, and we found out about what's happening. And when you find out that the government has all these capabilities, what do? Well, it depends on the person. Some people who find out the government has all these capabilities, they just get scared. They put their head down. They say, I don't want to attract any attention. I don't want the government to cause any problems for me. So a lot of people just try to hide. They say, I've got a family. I've got to keep my family safe. And if you put your head down and hide like that, you're doing the best you can to make sure that your children and your grandchildren grow up in a society where there's no freedom at all. Because when the government has this much information, they can easily start abusing it, and as they expand their capabilities, it can actually get much worse than it is now. I mean, you think it's bad now when they're tracking our metadata and recording the actual things we say on a phone call? It could easily be much worse. If they start tapping the fundamental chips in the internet, the chips in your computers, then they can start using the internet to actually not just track ideas, but suppress any ideas they don't like. They don't have the capability to do that now, but they may start doing it later. The internet and computers could become the greatest tool ever known for suppressing ideas that the government finds inconvenient. So it could get a lot worse. If you keep your head down and you don't do anything about it, they can expand their capabilities and they can take away your freedom. Fortunately, not all of us keep our head down. A lot of us are willing to come out and protest, and that's why people around the country are protesting today on Tuesday, February 11th, and this is far from going to be the last protest. It's not the first either. And we know it's going to take time to do this. Government does not want to give up the capabilities they have right away. There have been bills introduced in Congress to change a few things, but those bills don't go far enough. None of the proposals in Congress go far enough, and I think it's going to be decades before we're able to rein in this surveillance and get our constitutional rights back. So it's not going to happen right away, but over time we are able to achieve changes. Slavery wasn't overcome overnight. Segregation was not overcome overnight. These changes take decades. It takes people who are willing to take the risk of attracting the government's attention. It's a pretty small risk because the government doesn't dare to go after us right away. If the government tried to crack down on us, if the government tried to arrest me or you or any of us, then we would have each other's back and they would never get away with it. In fact, they'd probably end up being tried for crimes against the Constitution or war crimes themselves if they tried a crackdown on us. They know they can't risk it. But they tried it. They could try to take away our freedom, but it wouldn't last because people would fight back. So, yes, this is a time when our freedom is at risk, but at every point in American history, our freedom has been at risk. There have always been some threats from above, from the government to our freedom. We've always fought back, and so far we have not given in. We've kept fighting, and this is the only way that you have a chance of keeping the freedom you have is to fight back when you see the potential for abuses. It's the only way you keep your freedom, it's the only way you gain new freedoms, and we've been able to gain new freedoms over history that way. So, I know none of the proposals that have been made so far in Congress go far enough, I wouldn't trust this kind of surveillance until they had independent monitors installed right there at the NSA. They had a staff of hundreds of independent, they should have a staff of hundreds of independent monitors who don't answer to the president, don't answer to the Congress, just watching the people of the NSA and making sure they don't exploit this database in any bad way, and making sure that the White House doesn't exploit that information either, because otherwise it's just too tempting for abuses. So it's going to take time to rein this stuff in and regulate it enough. It's going to take a long time, but right now we live in interesting times. We live in the internet age, and governments and corporations have managed to build up a big capacity for surveillance by lying to us and hiding from us what they're doing. But it's also an interesting time because we still have the traditions from an earlier age, from an age when they weren't able to do it, and we still have the traditions of respecting privacy. And so right now, they can't dare to crack down on us, they can't dare to exploit their information too far, because there would be a backlash and they're not prepared to deal with it. We have to make sure that those traditions of respecting privacy, respecting individual rights, are preserved into the future for future generations, because we need those traditions. The traditions of our constitutional rights and our human rights are going to be needed even more in future generations when it becomes possible to do even more of the internet, and we have to make sure that there are strong protections for individual rights, so we don't have to take the attitude, just trust the people in power, because there are always people in power who want to abuse their authority. So, this is a long fight, but it's worthwhile. Thank you.